Have you ever wondered what happens after we die? Is it just lights out, or is there something more? For most of us, it's a question without a clear answer. But what if I told you there's a story, a real documented case, that might just offer a glimpse into the impossible? A story that challenges everything we think we know about life, death, and what comes next. This is the story of the Pollock Twins, and it might just be the most compelling evidence for reincarnation ever recorded. Our story begins in the small English town of Hexham in 1957. It was a beautiful spring day, May 5th, but for the Pollock family, it would become the darkest day of their lives. Two of their children, 11-year-old Joanna and 6-year-old Jacqueline, were on their way to church with a friend. They were just kids full of life, skipping along the pavement without a care in the world. Tragically, a driver lost control of their car, mounted the curb, and struck all three children. Joanna and Jacqueline died instantly. Their parents, John and Florence Pollock, were devastated. Their world was shattered. In the depths of his grief, John, a devout Catholic, began to pray. He prayed for his daughters to return. He held onto a fervent, almost desperate hope that he would see them again. Florence, on the other hand, was more pragmatic. She believed their daughters were gone forever, and she tried to come to terms with the unbearable loss. This difference in belief would become a central point of tension and wonder in the years to follow. A little over a year later, Florence became pregnant again. The news brought a flicker of light back into their darkened home. But what happened next was truly astonishing. Florence gave birth not to one child, but two twin girls. John was ecstatic. He saw this as a direct answer to his prayers. He believed his lost daughters, Joanna and Jacqueline, had been reborn. He named the twins Jennifer and Gillian from the very beginning. The coincidences were too strange to ignore. Jennifer, one of the twins, was born with two distinct birthmarks. One was a small, circular mark on her forehead, right above her right eye. The other was a mark on her waist. Incredibly, these were in the exact same spots as birthmarks that her deceased sister, Jacqueline, had, but it gets even stranger. Jacqueline had suffered a fall when she was 3 years old, leaving a small, permanent scar next to her eye. Jennifer was born with what looked exactly like that same scar, in the exact same place. How could this be? Scars are acquired, not inherited. They can't be passed down genetically, yet there it was. As the twins grew, the peculiarities mounted. When they were just a few months old, John and Florence moved from Hexham to a different town, Whitley Bay. They wanted a fresh start, away from the painful memories. The twins had never been to Hexham, and their parents rarely spoke of their deceased sisters. They had packed away all of Joanna and Jacqueline's old toys and clothes, trying to shield the new twins from the family's tragic past. But you can't shield children from memories they already seem to possess. When the twins were about 2 years old, they started to talk. And the things they said sent shivers down their parents' spines. They began asking for toys they had never seen, toys that had belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline. They'd say things like, "Where is my teddy bear that Daddy gave me?" Or, "I want the doll from Christmas." These were specific toys, locked away in the attic, that the twins had no way of knowing about. One day, Florence found them playing a chilling game. Jennifer was lying on the floor, and her twin sister Gillian was cradling her head, saying, "The blood's coming out of your eyes." That's where the car hit you. The parents had never, ever discussed the details of the accident with them. How could they possibly know this? The family's trips back to Hexham were even more surreal. As they drove into the town the twins had never visited, the girls began pointing out landmarks from the car. "Look, that's the school we used to go to," one would say, pointing to Joanna and Jacqueline's old school. They pointed out a park, a playground they loved, describing it in perfect detail before they even got there. It was as if they were retracing familiar steps from a life they had never lived. Their phobias were also strangely specific. Both twins had an intense, paralyzing fear of cars. Whenever a car started its engine nearby, they would scream in terror, clutching their parents and shouting, "The car is coming to get us." This wasn't just a typical childhood fear. It was a deep, visceral terror directly linked to the accident that took their sisters' lives. The most compelling evidence, however, came from the distinct personalities that seemed to emerge. Jennifer, the twin with Jacqueline's birthmarks, acted like the younger sister. She was more dependent on her twin, Gillian, looking to her for guidance and protection, just as 6-year-old Jacqueline had looked up to her big sister, Joanna. Gillian, on the other hand, exhibited the maturity and protective nature of an 11-year-old. She would often mother Jennifer, holding her hand, telling her what to do, and comforting her when she was scared. It was the exact dynamic Joanna and Jacqueline had shared. John Pollock was convinced. This was not a coincidence, it was reincarnation. He contacted Dr. Stevenson, a psychiatrist from the University of Virginia who was, at the time, one of the few academics in the world seriously studying claims of past lives. Dr. Stevenson was a meticulous and skeptical researcher. He wasn't looking to prove reincarnation, he was looking for facts. He traveled to England to meet the Pollock family and documented every single detail of the case. He interviewed the parents, neighbors, and family friends, cross-referencing every claim. Dr. Stevenson noted that John's strong belief in reincarnation could have influenced the girls. Perhaps he had unconsciously fed them information. But this theory couldn't explain everything. It couldn't explain the birthmarks and the scar. It couldn't explain the knowledge the twins had before they could even understand complex sentences. And it didn't account for Florence's initial skepticism. She was the one who was with the girls most of the time, and she went from a non-believer to being completely convinced by what she was witnessing with her own eyes. Then, something happened that was almost as strange as the memories themselves. Around the age of 5, the twins' past life memories began to fade. The phobia of cars disappeared. The specific recollections of Hexham and their old toys vanished. They started to develop their own individual personalities, separate from the echoes of Joanna and Jacqueline. It was as if the window to another life had slowly closed, and Jennifer and Gillian were now free to live their own lives, unburdened by the past. By the time they were young adults, they had no conscious memory of the things they had said and done as toddlers. The case of the Pollock twins became one of the cornerstone cases in Dr. Stevenson's decades of research, featured prominently in his books. So, what are we to make of all this? Skeptics offer several explanations. One is genetic memory, the idea that some memories or traumas can be passed down through DNA. But this is a highly controversial and unproven theory in science, and it certainly doesn't explain the knowledge of specific toys or the details of the accident. Another explanation is cryptomnesia, where the children might have overheard conversations and absorbed information unconsciously. But again, how could they have known about the scar or the landmarks in a town they'd never been to? And why would their memories align so perfectly with the two deceased sisters? The Pollock twins story forces us to confront the limits of our understanding. It stands as a powerful challenge to our conventional view of consciousness. Could it be that our identity, our memories, our very essence is not confined to a single lifetime? Is it possible that we are more than just our physical bodies, and that love and connection can transcend even death itself? The girls, Jennifer and Gillian, went on to live normal, happy lives. Their story, however, remains an enduring mystery. It doesn't offer definitive proof, but it provides something incredibly powerful, a reason to wonder, a reason to question, and a reason to believe that the world might be far more magical and mysterious than we can possibly imagine. What do you think? Is this a case of incredible coincidence, parental influence, or is it genuine evidence of reincarnation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think about this incredible story. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy exploring life's biggest mysteries, make sure to subscribe for more.